It is time for another edition of Around the Nest, the Blue Jays minor league podcast where we go up, down, left, right, side to side, back, front, all over the Blue Jays system. A little bit of a lighter edition today, but we're going to get right to it. Pat Malacaro from AAA Buffalo and the one and only Nathan Strauss from AA New Hampshire. No Andrew Trifley today. They got some early action in the Low A Southeast on this Friday, August 13th. So let's get right to it. We'll start at the top of the ladder. Pat, cheers to you, my friend, coming to us from Sahlen Field, and it has been a terrific last week. Everybody wants to know, how are the vibes in Buffalo now that the Bisons have come home?
Yeah, this team could not be riding higher right now, not only because they have 32 home victories this season, including the first 3 here in Buffalo, but just walking around the clubhouse on Monday, on the off day when the team traveled back the night before from Lehigh Valley, there are guys like Christian Colon who have won the World Series, had big, World Series clinching hits, and they're in awe of what this AAA clubhouse and AAA setup is now. So this team could not be more excited to be in Buffalo, I think, right now, not only because of the play on the field, but by the fact that, the new batting cage is even better than some of the big league cages out there. And the clubhouse is the best AAA clubhouse in minor league baseball. So, yeah, the team is playing well. They're enjoying their new home, and they're definitely, the fans are getting their money's worth for sure.
What about you, Pat? I know we touched on this last time we spoke about you getting back on the call, you and Duke doing your thing, and certainly making sure that not only you're doing the game, but you're having an opportunity to enjoy being back in the catbird seat, as we like to call it. So just from your personal perspective, what was that like to finally be behind the mic at home, calling every pitch, seeing every play? Certainly must have been a great time.
It was. It took me back to my first game as the full-time radio broadcaster back in 2018. And, for somebody who grew up coming to this ballpark for the last 34 years, even when the Blue Jays were here last year and, being one of the few people to be in the ballpark at that time, I just had all those memories of whether it was sitting in the old bleachers when this ballpark was first built in one of the early opening days, or in the middle of the summer when it, sitting on tin aluminum bleachers and it's 90 degrees out and it's a hot day. So it just brings back a lot of those memories. And, for somebody like Duke, who's been a voice that I've heard for pretty much ever, and he's been around the team, the Bisons organization, for over 40 years now. It's just all those memories and thoughts of the last 34 years always just flood back.
It's been, as you mentioned briefly, a terrific stretch at home. But if you extrapolate that out, the Bisons playing some of the best baseball in all of AAA. Now at the top of the heap, certainly love looking at those standings and seeing 2 dashes in the games behind column for Buffalo. What has been some of the keys to their success outside of getting that home field advantage and that juice you get returning in front of some friendly fans?
Well, the Bisons have pretty much been one of the best all-around teams this year. If you want to take the Bisons in AAA baseball of the 30 teams, pitching-wise, they've been one of the best all year long. Them, Durham, and Scranton have really been the 3 that stand out. The Bisons' overall team ERA is the best in AAA baseball. Their bullpen has been one of the best all year long as well. And they've been a good fielding team. They're in the top 5 in fielding percentage of the 30 teams in minor league baseball. Offensively, now you have to drill it down a little bit into the top 20 teams in AAA East. Of the 20 teams, they're top 5 there, hitting around 266 or so for the season. So they're a team that hits well. Last night, Kevin Smith comes up with a big 3-run home run, his 19th of the year, now up to 59 RBIs as well. So, he's played well. They pitch well, and defensively, they don't allow teams many extra outs. So when you do that, you're going to be one of the best teams, and they're just 1 game in the loss column behind Durham in terms of the best record in AAA baseball, in AAA East, for what would be the championship at the end. So, yeah, they just do everything pretty well.
I know you've got some things to do around the ballpark. Batting practice happening right now. A game tonight against Rochester. Zach Lowe getting the start. And as we look ahead through this last stretch here, we know that the playoff picture in AAA a little bit different. They're calling it the final stretch, if you will. But Buffalo putting themselves in a great position to have some success. If you look ahead, and we've got some call-ups coming more towards the end of the year, but also I'm sure some guys, most notably Kevin Smith, as soon as that roster spot opens up, Toronto is going to come calling for that guy. But for you, Pat, what does this team need to do to maybe improve their chances along the way? I know that might be a little bit of a difficult question given the fact that the Bisons have been playing so well in every aspect of the game. But if you had to nitpick, what part of the Buffalo roster or what product they put on the field could use maybe a little bit of a tune-up?
I think the starting pitching will have to be a little more consistent. Somebody like Anthony Kay, who has been up and down this year from the big leagues, he just doesn't seem to be able to find it all the time. And that's not a knock on him. I think that's just the product of the situation he's in this year. And, earlier on, we were talking a lot about Anthony Kay and TJ Zoik. And Zoik was in the same category, I think, before he went to the Cardinals organization. So, whether it's Zach Logue stepping up or last night Bowden Francis having a quality start for the Bisons and keeping them in the game when the team scores 3 runs, he gives up 3. But then the bullpen, the rest of the way with Brian Baker and Danny Jimenez, don't allow a run and only 1 hit overall in the final 3 innings. So the starting pitching, if they can be consistent over the final, 7 weeks of the season, all the way through October 3rd, then I think the Bisons will really be in a good spot, and they'll play Scranton in a couple of weeks. Will the Rail Riders get some of those players back from the big leagues that the Yankees dealing with, whether it's injuries, COVID-19, injured list? The Bisons will have to hold off Scranton Wilkes-Barre and then contend with Durham, who just seems like every year, whether the Rays make trades, bring players in, move players out, Tampa Bay stockpiles that Durham roster pretty well. So it's going to be a pretty good dogfight to the end.
Before we say goodbye, Pat, I got to know 2 things. First, can you tell us, as we know, but some folks listening to our podcast might not know, where they can catch Bisons baseball for the rest of the season?
Yeah, they can go to bisons.com. We've got everything there. You can, if you followed the Bisons when they were in Trenton on MILB.TV, Duke McGuire and I have those broadcasts. You can find us on ESPN 1520 AM locally and a 50,000 watt flamethrower. You can actually hear us if you're in Ocean City, Maryland, or even the Jersey Shore on a good summer night, on a clear night. You can hear us over the air, which is great. So yeah, head to bisons.com. We've got the listen links, we've got the watch link, and you can also hear us on terrestrial radio as well. The First Pitch app, MILB First Pitch app, you can find us on there as well. So plenty of different ways, and always love our friends up north have been checking in the last couple of days. So always great to hear from some friendly faces.
The future is certainly bright. And last thing, Pat, you're back at the ballpark, Sahlen Field, fans coming back. What's something about having Bisons baseball back at Sahlen Field that you didn't realize you missed, but now that you've got some games under your belt back at the friendly confines there in Buffalo, what was something that you realized you were missing out on over this 1.5-year stretch?
I'm somebody that always loves to come to the ballpark early, and maybe a little bit too early to my own detriment. But, just as we're sitting here right now, I can see off in the periphery, the team stretching and finishing up their routines. I just enjoyed that part of the game, is the calm before the storm, when there's very few people in the ballpark. Maybe batting practice hasn't even started yet, sitting here going over game notes and different things 3, 4, 5 hours before first pitch. That's really my most exciting time of the day, is just those moments before the lights go on, before the team takes the field. That's just the most fun that I have, whether it's here at the ballpark, at the arena for the Sabres in the winter, just all that before the preparation work that goes into getting a broadcast ready.
They say right guy, right spot in many ways. And Pat, right guy, right spot for that catbird seat at Sahlen Field. Go do your thing, Pat. Thanks for joining us today on the Round the Nest.
Thanks, Tyler. Take care.
All right. We'll drop down one rung on the ladder. Double-A New Hampshire, Nathan Strauss. Good day, my friend. Long time no see.
I know. Well, I got a couple of weeks in a row, and then Tyler got sick. So he was having a hard time. He couldn't even broadcast for a couple of weeks.
Right.
But it's good to see that he is recovered. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm joining you from a hotel on the road in scalding hot Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. Is it the same hotel that's by the cemetery and the Wendy's?
No, actually, that hotel was all out of occupancy. So the great Terry Byram connected me with a different hotel in the area.
I see. So the team is at that hotel and they have cordoned you off elsewhere.
Yes, I'm all by myself, as is tradition.
As is tradition, indeed. Now, coming to us from Harrisburg, in fact, in the middle of the Susquehanna River there, City Island, F&B Field, one of my favorite places to visit when I was calling games for the Fisher Cats a couple of years ago. Before we talk about what's been going on with the Cats recently, tell me you've taken advantage of the press box food. And by press box food, I mean the home plate gourmet setup, or maybe it's a different setup given the COVID regulations.
I have really sad news for you. The first thing they told me when I got there is that they aren't able to operate it the same way because of COVID. So they just do meal vouchers for their other concession stands. I'm so sad because Terry Byram was like, oh, under normal circumstances, you would get gourmet, like a carving station and scalloped potatoes and vegetables. I haven't had a vegetable in 3 weeks. So you got the lucky or the opposite of the short straw, and your name and your media pass is still on the wall in the visiting radio booth.
They do a nice job of honoring various voices of the other teams around the league, formerly known as the Eastern League. And I'm sorry you miss out, Nathan. Hopefully an opportunity to taste the delicious food at FNB Field. I remember some shrimp etouffee that was to die for. And I don't normally go back for seconds, but that day went back for seconds and took it back to the hotel. In fact, over the course of 3 seasons. All right, let's get down to the brass tacks. We got to talk about some Fisher Cats baseball. First and foremost, give us your 30,000-foot view over the recent series this week against those pesky Senators.
Yeah, so first of all, the Senators are a really interesting team. They've got the second worst record in the entire AA Northeast. They are the worst hitting team in the league and one of the top 4 pitching teams in the league. So their rotation that we've seen this week is going to end up featuring 4 of their top 30 prospects in the organization, including Cade Cavalli, who we saw 2 days ago. He was their number 1 overall prospect before the Nationals dealt Max Scherzer and Trey Turner for Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz. But Cade Cavalli was excellent, 7 shutout innings. I believe he'll have 4 hits and struck out 6. Seth Romero, who has major league experience, he's 25 now, but he's a lefty with very good off-speed stuff. He struck out 9 in 5 innings. Harrisburg gets more innings per start out of their starters than any other team in all of AA, and each of their starters has gone 5 innings or longer in the first 3 games so far. And that being said, New Hampshire is experiencing the sort of traditional dog days of August roster turnover. So half of our bullpen has departed for Buffalo. Hard-earned promotions for guys like Kyle Johnson, Fitz Stadler, who was hitting 101 earlier this year. And then most recently, Graham Spraker, out of Division II. And the last person to get called up was Marcus Reyes, who obviously spent the first 6 weeks of the season with you in Vancouver/Hillsborough. So our bullpen has gotten a lot younger, and our bats have been pretty similar, where we don't have our full 28 player roster right now. I believe we have 1 or 2 open spots. So we've gotten to see a lot of the same guys over and over again since Otto Lopez went up to Buffalo about 10 days ago. And it's been pretty good to see, guys like Vinny Capra continue to do what Vinny Capra does. Other guys like LJ Talley have been pretty consistent in the middle of the lineup for New Hampshire. And Samad Taylor and Demi Orimoloye, I think, are the 2 hottest bats on the Fisher Cats right now. The series right now, 2-1 for New Hampshire, a chance to clinch a potential split tonight with weekend action coming up.
We had a big blast from one of those guys you just mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened under the sun at FNB Field? Always nice to get a mid-series day game.
It's always nice to get a mid-series day game because of the evening off that you get afterwards. It's less nice to get a mid-series day game when it's 96 degrees at first pitch and when the real feel is up towards 110.
Nice.
But actually, I mean, it is really nice. Day baseball is a real pleasure. And, Demi's bat is incredibly hot right now as well. He hit a ball so high and so far that I couldn't see it in the sky. It actually cleared their team store. The camera person for Harrisburg lost it as well. It was 105 miles an hour off the bat. The TrackMan said 470 feet 10 inches, which, by the way, would have set a major league record for about 4 clubs. Demi, he was drafted in 2015 by the Brewers and in the 4th round out of high school in Ottawa. Scouts thought he had potential 30-30 skills, a rare combination of speed and power. He's 6'4", 225. He's got over 10 stolen bases. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head this year, but the power is something that he's recently showcased since being reinstated from the development list in mid-July. I think, if anything, he's a testament to the fact that this development list should really stay. And yesterday, Brody Rodning for us came off the development list, pitched 2 scoreless innings, and ended up picking up the win about 6 hours after the roster move went through. So all in all, it's nice to see Demi sort of putting the tools together in his first AA season. And I mean, when you've got the raw tools to be able to hit a ball that hard, it's just about finding the consistency. And hopefully he'll get a chance to showcase that in the next 5.5 weeks.
Looking ahead for you, Nathan, from your point of view, obviously the Fisher Cats still under 500, but have been playing better baseball over the last 2 months. What are some things that the Fisher Cats maybe have started to do well that they weren't doing so well at the beginning of the season, and in part could explain the recent successes and certainly more wins than losses over this most recent stretch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Fisher Cats were, I think, 6 games under 500 in the month of May. And since then, they've been, a few games over 500. So a lot of the losses early on in the season were caused by just poor bullpen performances. It seemed like every other night, New Hampshire would take a lead into the seventh or eighth inning and then would find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I think our bullpen has gotten a lot better over the course of the year. Had a good interview with pitching coach Jim Sykowski a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the whole mentality shift that the bullpen has undergone, and that, the guys who are coming into the game know that they need to be truly ready when they come in. They can't rely on the scoreboard. They know they need to bring their A game whenever they come in, and that's been showcased lately. Otherwise, I think Vinny Capra getting healthy in the second week of June, really, and his insertion into the lineup has been huge. It just gives another tool to this team. I think New Hampshire, we would be contending for potentially playoff spots if Gabriel Moreno hadn't been injured in the third week of June. You're talking about a player who was hitting 371 when he got injured, an OPS of well over 1,000. He was on pace for a league MVP style season if he didn't get the call up to Buffalo or even Toronto before then. And so I don't know. We haven't gotten any updates on whether he'll be back at some point this season. And then last but not least, Otto Lopez, before he went up to Buffalo, he is about 7 plate appearances away from being eligible for the AA Northeast batting title. And while I doubt that he gets sent back down to make himself eligible, he was someone who had an on-base percentage of about 400. He was hitting 330, a lot of, gap power, but mostly contact and speed from him. So all in all, I think the pieces, we had a really young roster, I think the second youngest in the league, as a testament to what the Blue Jays organization have done in prioritizing youth. And it's just taken some growing pains, really, to see these guys develop into AA Northeast caliber players.
Let's mix the personal with the professional here as we wrap things up with you, Nathan Strauss from AA New Hampshire. Certainly want to know, you've got some college coming up. Are you returning to school? Are we going to lose you here with the Fisher Cats in the short order?
So that's a good question. I am going into my senior year at the University of Massachusetts Amherst at UMass. So I will be heading back. Yes, go Minutemen. Don't let Tyler hear you say that, but yeah, go Minutemen indeed. So I will be continuing to do various bits and bobs throughout the end of the season on social media, maybe assisting with game notes if there was ever a time when the great Bob Littman was in need. But after that, I'll be back. I'll be the president of WMUA Sports, UMass Student Radio this coming year, and then it's into the real world with potentially looking to do what you did and maybe spend another year or two with the Cats. And Leo, you make a good point. I will not be relinquishing the Twitter handle. Tyler Murray and I have an implicit agreement that I will be allowed to continue to tweet on the creative side of things. I think Tyler, with his new promotion, will handle the marketing side of social media, but I'm not ready to let go of that just yet. So I think there's a conversation to be had about, maybe I could come back to New Hampshire for another summer, but I'm only just turned 22, and I feel fortunate to have been able to fill the shoe, or try to fill your shoes, Zick, that you left in Tyler's office in Manchester.
Well, different shoes entirely. And you've done such a terrific job all season long, Nathan. It's been a treat to listen to your broadcast, to have you join us on Around the Nest, and most notably, take over the Fisher Cats Twitter, which is another place I wanted to go here before we wrap up with you. I actually have a bone to pick with you. Now, going back to 2018, you remember, you weren't there, but you heard about obviously all the things that happened. Tyler and I had a lot of fun taking advantage of the extra eyes on the Fisher Cats, thanks to Vlad, Bo, and Kevin, of course, the championship season as well. And so that Twitter voice really developed. You've carried the torch nicely, but talk to me a little bit about this Toronto Maple Leafs tweet, because now you roll your eyes. I overheard you went back and you deleted the tweet. How dare you?
Yeah. So my personal Twitter voice, I think, has stemmed a lot from the sort of communities that I'm a part of on my personal Twitter account. So I've learned from a lot of great social media professionals. Alyssa Turner, who grew 2 NWHL teams from scratch into having 20,000 plus followers. Juliana Nikotz, who is now one of the social media leads for the Denver Nuggets. She got her start at Boston University, and she's someone who I'm close with as well. But all in all, my main point is trying to have fun and trying to make baseball and Fisher Cats baseball fun. Because I think that's sort of a crux that baseball is facing right now, or a crossroads rather that baseball is facing right now. And shout out to MLB and Fox for putting on the Field of Dreams show last night, because I think that's a good step as well. But I made the Maple Leafs tweet because, first of all, so much of the semiotic language of Twitter comes from these very self-referential memes, if you will, and the Leafs not being able to make it out of the first round is something that is both factually, correct, but also has developed into having an online life of its own. I made the tweet. It got a lot of Leafs fans who are, down to earth and are like, haha, so funny, etc., etc. I did get one person sending me death threats on my personal Twitter account in the DMs.
Whoa, hold on. Stop right there.
That,
you've received death threats over a tweet that you put out on the Fisher Cats Twitter. You got death threats on your personal Twitter. Are you kidding me?
No, so that's actually what prompted me to delete it, because I was like, you know what? It's getting some decent play. I got like a couple hundred likes and 55,000 impressions, but also like, it's probably not worth it. And fortunately, give credit to Tyler Murray, because I had no social media management experience. I thought I could do a good job. I've done a great job by the numbers, but credit Tyler for basically being like, hey, 21-year-old Nathan, like, here's the password, like, go to town. And I've had some growing pains for sure, but that was the first time that I've deleted a tweet for anything other than a spelling error. So if that's what it took, then I think we're in a good place as far as the Cats social media presence goes.
Absolutely. And I just want to again commend you on the terrific job you've done this year. We had Leo, our producer, in the chat, as you referenced moments ago, saying that all of the Jays fans have really loved it. And so again, cheers to you, Nathan. And I did not know the backstory there. So that's what it's called, putting your life on the line for the business and for the game of baseball.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, Richard Lee Sam, who's obviously one of the main social media people for the Jays, he and I are actually in a couple of group chats together. And so whenever I have something risque that I want to post, I'll run it by him first. And he and Ali Khan do a really good job of supporting us when our content is good and giving us feedback when it's less good. And I think, fortunately, New Hampshire is in an interesting place because we are, fairly proximate to Toronto. And in terms of being a AA team, this is where you get to see certain prospects stand out from the pack for the first time. I mean, not for the first time necessarily, but at a higher, more experienced level of competition. And I think that bodes well for having a more nuanced voice. And, we also have more people who can get content for us, like Andrew Thrifley, credit to him. He's out here posting videos, trying to, do all of the things that he has to do down in Dunedin. You're solo calling games from the booth, in as one of 4 people in Vancouver, or rather in Hillsborough right now, or not right now, but this past year.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have a little bit more freedom, and I feel very fortunate to have gotten to be a part of it this summer, and it makes me definitely want to return.
Good. Absolutely. That's what we want to hear. I've got nothing else for you, Nathan, but normally, as you probably know by now, we pass the mic over to Tyler Murray to ask me questions about the Vancouver Canadians. Now, I didn't give you any prompts in advance, but here's an opportunity to put you to the test, feet to the fire a little bit in your Taylor Swift year. Tell me, is there anything about the Vancouver Canadians that's been top of mind for you, one step above, that you may have some interest about?
Well, I think the first question is, you've got to get to O-Watch. I mean, I know that you haven't been in situ for the last couple of games, but this is now his 2.5 week at the advanced day level. What more have you seen from him in his recent games?
Yeah, certainly nice to see Elvis, who has played in every single game since getting the call-up. So that's 6 last week and 3 this week. The team in Everett, Washington, taking on the Mariners affiliate, the Aqua Sox, had a home run a couple of nights ago, last night, and a big win. Contributed on offense as he's continued to do, riding a 5-game hitting streak right now. But we actually saw a little bit of his youth and inexperience on defense last night. A couple of errors that didn't help Sem Robersa making his high A debut yesterday, which we'll touch on in just a bit. So that's how Sem ended up giving up 9 runs in his debut over just 2 2/3 innings, but only 4 of them were earned. So again, 19 years old, a guy really still trying to figure it out on defense. And on offense, obviously the bat is there. We've seen a little bit of, I don't even want to say kryptonite or Achilles heel, but some of that breaking stuff early in the account, you find him getting fooled a little bit. And this is nitpicking because he has really shown up and been a presence in the 3-hole where he's been penciled in for all 9 of his games here in high A. So I really enjoyed giving the O updates. He is fun to watch. The home run that we posted from Wednesday night in Everett was an absolute mammoth shot. Would have been out of any ballpark, but at a bandbox like Funko Field, where Nathan, you and I could probably go deep at the plate. Certainly a guy who adds that electricity, adds that juice to the lineup. And it's also given other guys like Luis de los Santos, who has shifted from shortstop to second base, and Rafael Antigua opportunities to be more of a leader, a steward, a big brother of sorts for the young star, because Orelvis has been spending almost all of his time with Luis on the bus, at the hotel, before the game in the clubhouse. And so it's been nice to see Luis de los Santos get an opportunity to not only be a leader on the team on the field, but do so off the field as well.
One player who I think could very well end up in New Hampshire, either before the season's end or at the start of next year, is Spencer Horwitz. I know the numbers aren't eye-popping, but lately he seems to be popping up on the stat sheet quite a bit. Talk to me about the 23-year-old and where you view him in terms of organizational depth in the future.
Absolutely. I think the thing that stands out most about Spencer's game is his discerning batter's eye. He was among conference leaders at Radford in college his final year back in 2019 before he was drafted, and now is the league leader in base on balls in the high A West with 55, while leading the team in games played. I'm going to estimate here, I think it's right around 76 games Spencer has played in, as opposed to I believe we're at game like 86 or 87 for the Canadians right now. So a guy who is able to show up in the lineup every day, because they say health is wealth in every aspect of life, but especially so in sports and in a grinding game like baseball across 120 or 162 game season. And last night, 2-run home run in the first to start the scoring. He's the guy who can go gap to gap, who's been hitting a lot of balls hard lately, but not all of them falling. Hence the average still hanging out right around 240. But sneaky power, great plate discipline, and he plays a fantastic first base. So certainly a guy who's a couple of years off, but you see guys even in high A where you look at them and you say, all right, this guy could make it to the show with his various tools. And I think Spencer is definitely one of those guys.
One last question for you that is sort of Fisher Cats adjacent at this point. Tomorrow we get to see Nick Fraze make his AA debut on the mound for New Hampshire. I got a chance to speak with him in the middle of a torrential downpour the other day. We were in the middle of an interview, actually, and all of a sudden it was like Noah's Ark was about to leave the station, and we got absolutely drenched. But his numbers are truly eye-popping. His sub-1 whip, for example, batters were only hitting, just under 180 against him. He's slightly older than maybe some of his peers. He is 23 years old, but what should we expect getting to see him on the mound tomorrow?
Nick Fraze, one of my favorite guys to watch pitch this year, and over 7 seasons of minor league baseball and now 4 in the Blue Jays system. For me, Nick is a guy, when he goes out there every 5th or 6th day, you're going to get a competitor, even if his stuff is off. It starts with his wide stance on the mound when he's working from the windup. You don't see that very often, but Nick's up there, his feet on the very farthest ends of the pitcher's plate, holds that glove right in front of his face, and while not blocking the mic for me, perfectly blocks his face and as well as his view of his pitches. So he's not tipping his pitches the same way. He does a nice job of setting up his various grips without changing the way he moves his glove. A minor thing, but as you get up into the upper levels of the minors and of course the big leagues, that's something professional hitters are looking for. He's got a 4-pitch mix, 2 types of fastballs, a slider and a changeup. That slider is especially devastating to left-handed batters and something that went on, he is unhittable. In fact, in his second to last start with the Canadians in Spokane about a week and a half ago, he was perfect through 4 innings of work as he was still getting stretched out from that arm injury he was returning from. So this is a guy who's going to go out there. He's going to attack like a mad dog. He's going to be a gamer and somebody who certainly is going to be able to eat up innings as well. So I'm excited for you to get to see him. A little envious that he's now with the Fisher Cats as opposed to being with the Vancouver Canadians these days, but a deserved promotion for sure. And somebody who, with a good rest of this year, a terrific spring, and maybe a start in AAA next year, perhaps, if he continues his development in the offseason. Nick Frey's not an outside chance that he cracks the big leagues next year. Of course, so many different things have to happen both for him and around him, but certainly a guy who's not on that top 30 prospect list, but somebody for me who either deserves to be or who has the talent to be considered amongst that top group of prospects.
Yeah, and all of the pitchers who have arrived from Vancouver, starting with Marcus Reyes in the beginning of or the middle of June, and Connor Law coming back from a sort of a yo-yo start to the year, but most recently Brandon Eisert and Adrian Hernandez. Those two, the last two, have been perfect so far. Adrian Hernandez gave up a moonshot on the first pitch he threw in Double-A, but then since then has quieted bats over the last 3 2/3 innings he's pitched. He worked a 6-out save in a 1-run game in the day game yesterday. Eisert has looked pretty good as well. Again, not a guy who will kill you with velocity, but his placement and his sort of unique delivery, that 3/4 arm lefty delivery, I think makes him really valuable. And Luis Quinones got shelled in his first game, and since then has quieted opponent bats majorly. Yesterday, he went 4. The only thing he doesn't have in his game is longevity, but he's got the strikeouts. He struck out 10 last weekend in 5 shutout innings, and then he struck out 6 yesterday in 4 shutout innings as well. So it's been a pleasure watching those guys come up to New Hampshire.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the pitching down here in Vancouver and around the High A West for the Canadians has certainly been one of their Achilles heels, a staff ERA hovering just under 5, starters with an ERA of 5.12, and the bullpen is in the upper 4s. So certainly in a hitters league such as this, that's going to happen. And when you have only 5 other teams to play, the book is out on just about every pitcher, which is why we see guys coming up from low A like Gabriel Ponce, Andrew Bash, Hayden Yinger, who made his professional debut as a 6th-round pick this year with the C's just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, that was last week against Hillsborough. Those guys having a lot of early success. In fact, Andrew Bash got the win 2 nights ago in relief. Gabriel Ponce did so last night. So certainly guys who are coming up here, working with Phil Kandari, our first-year pitching coach, and finding it, if you will. Brandon Eisert, one of those guys. Adrian Hernandez, that changeup is something special and something that could get big league batters out right now. So the hope is that guys continue to develop. And then also down here in Vancouver, you got your front of the line starters like CJ Van Eyck and Adam Kloffenstein, who are putting together some of their better outings of the year, which is what you can only hope, especially for a guy like Van Eyck, drafted last year out of Florida State. We've talked a lot about him and Kloffenstein, who established a new career high on Tuesday night with 11 strikeouts. This is a guy at 6'5", 225 pounds. You'd expect to be a power pitcher a la Nate Pearson, but the stuff, while good, it's not an overpowering fastball. But 2 nights ago, or now 3 nights ago on Tuesday, really fun to watch, despite the Canadians not being able to necessarily back him up with the bats, and he took the loss, which goes to tell you that Brian Kenny might be onto something when he says kill the win, because a guy like Kloffenstein can pitch as well as he did and still be the losing pitcher. But such is life and such are the rules of the game. But all around, it's been a little bit better stretch here in August after a dismal July at the plate and especially on the mound. And it's a nice way for guys to wrap up, in many respects, their first pro season or second pro season, because there've been a lot of downs, but you need to be able to carry some of those ups, those highs into the offseason and then return to full strength going into the 2022 year, a season from now.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon from the C's?
Not a thing, Nathan, but what I do want to touch upon is, once again, you've done a stand-up job, not only filling in for Tyler Murray for the updates from New Hampshire, but acting as the co-host, asking the questions about the C's. So I just want to give you your flowers for a moment here and say you come to every episode so prepared. You got the numbers, you got the inside information, you got it all. So Nathan, thanks very much.
Thank you. Well, I consider myself a sort of Bob Littman, Tyler Murray hybrid in that respect, because Bob is all about the numbers and the preparation, and Tyler is all about the voice and the creativity, if you will. So I feel lucky to have learned from the two of them. And what is if this might be my last appearance on Around the Nest, who knows? Although I will be in Hartford next week, so
we're gonna get you again, Nathan. We're getting
okay.
I promise you
Then
that,
I'll
no
say
matter what.
I'll save my soliloquy for then on baseball.
Good idea.
So that way I'll script it for next time.
Okay, we'll take what we can get, and whether it's scripted or unscripted, always a pleasure chatting with you, Nathan. So thanks very much.
Thank you for having me, and go Cats.
Go Cats indeed. As we said, a short edition this week, though we still found a way to get it through to about 35 minutes, much to the chagrin of our producer, Leo Mui. But Leo, as always, thanks for your continued work. We'll get Andrew Tripoli back next week as the DJs are playing right now as we record this. So we'll get all the information from Andrew about what's been going on over the last 2 weeks with those Dunedin Blue Jays as they continue to put together some better baseball. And as always, just fun chatting about Blue Jays minor leagues, both on the field and off. So as we wrap up another edition of Around the Nest, a special thank you to my co-host, Nathan Strauss, as well as Pat Malacaro from AAA Buffalo. We will get AT next week. But for now, Tyler Zickel and company signing out from another edition of Around the Nest.